A question that sprung to my mind from this: what about classic car EV conversions? So let's take it one step further, because if this German study raises questions about factory-built EVs, what on earth does it mean for classic car EV conversions? Think about it. A Tesla Model 3, a Volkswagen ID3, a Porsche Taycan, whether you like them or not, they were designed from the ground up as electric cars. The battery location, the inverter, the electric motor, the shielding, the cable routing, the floor structure, the crash protection, the electronics, all of it was designed as part of one complete vehicle. But what about a classic car? What about an old Land Rover, an old Mini, an old Porsche, an old Jaguar, an old Rolls Royce? A car that was designed decades ago for a petrol engine, a fuel tank, a gearbox, an exhaust, a 12-volt battery, and maybe an alternator. Perhaps even a dynamo if it's old enough. Now somebody comes along and says, don't worry, we'll make it electric. Out comes the engine, out comes the fuel tank, out comes the gearbox, and in goes a high voltage battery pack, high voltage cabling, an inverter, controllers, chargers, an electric motor, regenerative braking, and all the associated power electronics. And the question no one seems to be asking is, who's measuring the electromagnetic field exposure inside the cabin when that converted car is actually being driven? Not parked, not on display, not sitting at a classic car show. I mean under load, accelerating, braking, regenerating, pulling hard up a hill, doing stop-start traffic, using heated seats, DC converters, chargers, battery management systems, and all the rest of it. Because that old car was never designed around high voltage architecture. It was never designed with modern EV cable routing in mind. It was never designed with battery shielding in mind. It was never designed with inverter placement in mind. It was never designed with passengers sitting inches away from battery boxes and high current cables. And in some conversions, the battery packs may end up where the fuel tank was, or under the rear seats, or in the boot, or in the engine bay, or under the floor, or split across several areas of the vehicle. So the obvious question is, where are the EMF hotspots? Near the driver's feet, under the rear bench, around the transmission tunnel, near the boot-mounted battery pack, around the controller, near the DC-DC converter, along the high-voltage cable runs? And does anybody actually tell the customer? The big difference between safety and exposure. Now this is the bit people will try to twist. I'm not saying every classic EV conversion is unsafe, or any of them are unsafe. I'm not saying these companies are deliberately doing anything wrong. And I'm not saying the car will definitely harm you. But I am saying there's a difference between the car works, the car passes paperwork, the car does not electrocute you, the car does not interfere with its own electronics, and we have measured the cabin electromagnetic field exposure under real driving conditions and can show you the results. Those are not the same thing. The UK approval and registration world is largely concerned with whether the vehicle is roadworthy, correctly registered, constructed safely, and compliant with relevant vehicle rules. The government's own guidance refers to IVA, MSVA, construction and use regulations, and registration issues for historic, classic rebuilds and electric converted vehicles. But where is the consumer-facing EMF map? Where is the chart showing magnetic field exposure at the driver's feet? Where's the reading from the rear seats? Where's the reading under full acceleration? Where's the reading under regenerative braking? Where's the reading after the car has been converted, not before? Because in the German study, the big concern was not simply average exposure. The concern raised by Microwave News was the short, sharp, transient pulses during acceleration and braking, exactly the kind of thing you could easily imagine being affected by motor type, inverter location, shielding, cable routing and vehicle design. And in a classic conversion, all of that depends on the conversion. Why classic car owners may be completely unaware. This is the part that really bothers me. A lot of people buying classic EV conversions are not necessarily technical EV people. They may be wealthy classic car enthusiasts. They may love the shape, the brand, the nostalgia, the leather, the chrome, the smell of the old cabin. They may be told it's the best of both worlds. Classic looks, modern reliability and speed. No emissions, instant torque, silent running, future-proofed, usable every single day. But are they being told, by the way, we've fitted a high voltage electric drivetrain into a body shell that was never designed for one. And here are the independent EMF exposure results inside the cabin. I doubt it. And that's a problem, because if the German government-backed study is finding surprisingly high transient EMF spikes in production EVs and hybrids, then surely converted classics deserve even more scrutiny, not less. A factory EV has had a team of engineers designing the whole package. A converted classic may have a bespoke installation. One car may be different from the next. One cable route may be different. One battery layout may be different. One inverter position may be different. One shielding solution may be different. So how can the customer possibly know what they're sitting in unless somebody measures it? This isn't about attacking classic EV conversions. I love the engineering in these programs. I love the way they build them. I think it's fantastic. I'm just not sure that A, you should be putting electric engines in classic cars, and B, I'm pretty sure they weren't built for it, and C, I'm pretty sure that nobody, when they were building them, thought into the future and thought, I better just make sure the driver's shielded from EMF pulses. It just didn't happen, did it? So this is about asking a basic consumer safety question. If you're going to charge somebody tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, to convert a classic car into an EV, then surely the customer should be given more than a glossy brochure and a promise. They should be given proper technical disclosure, battery safety, crash safety, fire safety, high voltage isolation, EMC compliance, and yes, cabin EMF exposure readings under real driving conditions, because otherwise what you have is a very expensive experiment. A beautiful old car designed in the 1960s, 70s or 80s, now carrying modern high voltage EV equipment with the owner sitting inside, possibly completely unaware that this question has even been raised. And here's the killer point. If EV campaigners want to tell us that electric cars are the future, fine, but then test the future properly. Don't just test whether the lights work. Don't just test whether the paperwork's in order. Don't just test whether it moves under its own power. Test what the driver is actually exposed to. Test what the passenger is exposed to. Test what the children in the back are exposed to. Test what happens under acceleration. Test what happens under regenerative braking. Test what happens when the motor is pulling hard and the inverter's working flat out. Because if German researchers are finding short, sharp EMF spikes in modern production EVs, then I want to know what's happening inside an old classic car that was never designed to be electric in the first place. And if nobody's measured it, then that should worry people. Not because it proves disaster, because it proves ignorance. And when you're sitting inside a high voltage converted classic car, ignorance is not a safety feature. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.